The development of atomic bombs marked a profoundly significant moment in history. It bestowed upon nations the capability to obliterate entire cities instantly. This shifted the nature of conflict between major powers from mere victory or defeat to the potential annihilation of life as we knew it. This pervasive threat of instant destruction significantly influenced people's lifestyles and behaviors. Selling bunkers. Amid the Cold War's clash of communism and democracy, capitalism seized an opportunity to profit from nuclear fears. In the 1950s, salespeople roamed the U.S., pitching nuclear bunkers as a potential savior from atomic threats. Effective advertising often plays on people's fears of not having a product. In 1958, one bunker vendor's strategy was to ask homeowners what they would do if a bomb detonated at that moment. When homeowners mentioned heading to their basements, the vendor posed a crucial question: what if the nuclear inferno engulfs your burning home above the basement? Their solution? Purchase a Kita Cocoon Shelter Kit for just $3,000, a stylish way to find peace of mind in the face of doomsday. Moral dilemmas. Owning an atomic bomb shelter raised moral questions during the 1950s in the deeply Christian United States. What should be the Christian response when neighbors sought refuge during a nuclear war? Limited space in bunkers posed challenges. Time magazine explored this dilemma in a 1961 article titled, "Gun Thy Neighbor?" The responses varied widely. Some intended to defend their shelter fiercely, even with machine guns. On the other hand, Reverend Hugh Saucy suggested a more selfless approach, advocating for leaving the shelter to those in need. However, he acknowledged the practical challenges of such a strict Christian application. Ethical dilemmas. In addition to religious considerations, philosophers grappled with the moral implications of nuclear weapons in a field known as nuclear ethics. This discipline explored various ethical questions, from the allocation of resources between nuclear bombs and welfare projects to the justification of nuclear deterrence. One noteworthy thought experiment from 1981, proposed by Harvard Law professor Roger Fisher, involved a unique approach to prevent nuclear war. Fisher suggested placing the vital code for launching nuclear weapons in a small capsule implanted near a volunteer's heart. This volunteer would carry a heavy butcher knife while accompanying the president. In the event the president decided to launch nuclear weapons, the only way to do so would be by personally taking the life of an innocent human being. This scenario aimed to bring the harsh reality of such a decision home, with the image of blood on the White House carpet. Nuclear projects. Once a country possesses nuclear weapons, exploring non-military applications becomes inevitable. In the United States, Project Plowshare was initiated to investigate the peaceful uses of nuclear bombs, drawing inspiration from the verse in the book of Isaiah that foretells a time of peace when weapons are transformed into tools for agriculture. Some unconventional ideas were proposed, including a plan to create a new canal in Nicaragua using controlled blasts known as the Panatomic Canal. There were also proposals to connect underground waterways with explosives to augment water supplies, albeit with potential radiation consequences. Project Chariot stands out among these projects, intending to use hydrogen bombs for excavating a new harbor in Alaska through underground detonations. However, local protests and the impracticality of the harbor's use led to its abandonment. Shockingly, an investigation 30 years later revealed that buried radioactive waste could indeed spread radioactivity, highlighting the potential risks of such endeavors. Anti-nuclear movements. Not everyone welcomed the existence of nuclear weapons. In the United Kingdom, philosopher Bertrand Russell founded the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, CND. While some argued that nuclear weapons were a necessary deterrent against the Soviet threat, Russell, with his characteristic logic, asserted that it was preferable to be red than dead. Shortly after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Russell penned a sobering assessment of humanity's predicament, emphasizing the urgent need for innovative political thinking to avert utter disaster. In 1955, he collaborated with other Nobel laureates to draft the Russell-Einstein Manifesto, advocating for a nuclear weapons ban. Even at the age of 88 in 1961, Russell demonstrated his commitment by serving a 7-day prison sentence for participating in protests against the deployment of Polaris missiles in Britain. Human radiation experiments. While the dangers of ionizing radiation were recognized in the 1940s, the perils of exposure to high radiation levels and radioactive fallout remained poorly understood. With the potential for a nuclear conflict, there arose a need to study these effects more comprehensively. This led to a series of ethically questionable experiments involving human subjects. Some, like stationing military personnel near atomic bomb tests, yielded distressing outcomes. However, others remained shrouded in secrecy. In the United States, patients were subjected to the injection of radioactive materials, including polonium, uranium, and plutonium, without informed consent. In one instance, a patient with a broken arm and leg had plutonium injected, with doctors delaying treatment for 5 days to collect bone samples. Additionally, 15 teeth were removed for examination. These unethical experiments extended to administering radioactive substances to pregnant women and feeding radiation-laden food to children with special needs. Similar tests were conducted by other nations, though details have been less forthcoming. Lost nuclear weapons. When envisioning a nuclear weapon plummeting from the sky, the mind conjures images of mushroom clouds and instantaneous devastation. However, sometimes accidents happen, and these weapons fall without detonating. While safety mechanisms reduce the risk of accidental detonation, finding these misplaced bombs can be a daunting task. In 1966, near the Spanish town of Palomares, a catastrophic event unfolded as 2 aircraft collided mid-air, one carrying a nuclear bomb. Subsequently, 4 nuclear weapons tumbled from the sky. 3 landed on land, with 2 of them triggering the conventional explosives but failing to cause a nuclear explosion, dispersing radioactive material. The 4th bomb plunged into the sea, initiating a massive search operation involving numerous ships and hundreds of divers. Eventually, it was located and retrieved from a depth of 3,000 feet, 914.4 meters. Despite such incidents, there remain unknown cases of misplaced nuclear bombs, including one still missing after a crash in North Carolina. Nuclear themes in pop culture. Popular culture invariably mirrors the concerns and anxieties of society. In the shadow of the looming nuclear threat, it's no surprise that this theme has recurred in various forms of entertainment. In 1955, the film Them depicted colossal ants wreaking havoc in New Mexico, mutated by atomic bomb tests in the vicinity. Godzilla, released in Japan in 1954, explicitly linked its titular monster to nuclear testing. Godzilla's path was marked by radioactive devastation, serving as a poignant metaphor for the perils of atomic weapons. Given the recent horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan deeply resonated with Godzilla's message: dark humor amidst nuclear fears. In the bleakest of circumstances, humor can still find a place. Nuclear war is no exception. The film Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, stands as a prime example of dark comedy. The movie portrays a rogue military commander sending nuclear bombers toward the Soviet Union, triggering a crisis upon the revelation of a Soviet doomsday device that would obliterate Earth if attacked. This unlikely scenario leads to a series of absurd and memorable moments, including a brawl between a general and the Soviet ambassador in the war room, with the president trying to break it up by declaring, "Gentlemen, you can't fight in here." This is the war room. A standout character is Dr. Strangelove, a former Nazi fixated on ever larger bombs. Due to his penchant for massive explosives, the real physicist Edward Teller was occasionally dubbed the real Dr. Strangelove. Teller, when confronted with this comparison in 1999, showed little enthusiasm, emphasizing that his name was not Strangelove and dismissing any further discussion on the matter. Portraying nuclear horror in fiction. While humor can provide a momentary respite, nuclear destruction's unvarnished horror demanded dramatic representation. Threads, broadcast on the BBC in 1984, offered a brutally realistic depiction that likely left an entire nation traumatized, obliterating any hope of survival in the event of war. During the 70s and 80s, governments aimed to reassure citizens about protecting themselves during World War III. Advice included constructing rudimentary bomb shelters, such as digging trenches or using doors for cover. Some suggested painting windows with white paint to mitigate thermal shock from nuclear explosions. Threads, however, shattered these illusions with its stark portrayal of Britain's struggle even in a limited nuclear exchange. Spoiler alert, the outcome was far from optimistic. Similarly, the 1986 animated film, When the Wind Blows, followed an elderly English couple dutifully following government guidelines at the onset of nuclear war. Their adherence to instructions did little to ensure a favorable outcome. In the United States, The Day After, aired in November 1983, depicted a fictional nuclear conflict between NATO and the Warsaw Pact, escalating into a catastrophic exchange between the United States and the Soviet Union, culminating in a barrage of nuclear weapons.